Alright, Subpart C, Qualification, Maintenance, and Use of Cylinders, Part 180, Title 49, Chapter 1, 180, 201, Applicability. Subpart prescribed with the requirement of addition with these contained parts 107 to 171, 172, 173, 178, with the chapter continuing with qualification, maintenance, periodic qualification, spot specification, exemption, cylinders, and UN pressure receptacle. The definition. As used in this section, the word cylinder included with the UN pressure receptacle with an addition with the definition contained in 171.8 with the subchapter. The following definition applied with the subpart. Commercial free corrosive components means the corrosive material having the dew point with the below minus 46.7 minus 52 degrees Fahrenheit at 101 kPascals at 1 atmosphere for components with the adversely reactive cylinder, e.g. chemical stress for corrosion. Condemn means the deterioration of the cylinder unserviceable with the continuing the transportation of hazardous material in common for the cylinders may not be restored, repaired, rebuilding, requalification, any other procedure. Defect means the imperfection requirement removal of the cylinder and surface of the elastic suspension means the temporary increase of the cylinder volume due to the application of the pressure with the loss of the pressure release. Elastic expansion for the total expansion minus for the permanent expansion filled with the filled or charged means that I introduce the presence of the hazardous material in a cylinder. Non-corrosive services means the hazardous material in the presence of the moisture, non-corrosive the material for the construction of the cylinder, including the valve, pressure relief valve, etc. Overheated means the condition with the temperature of any portion of the aluminum cylinder has reached 350 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, in which for the temperature any portion of the steel and nickel cylinder has reached 650 degrees or higher. Permanent expansion means with a permanent increase of the cylinder volume after the test pressure. The relief proof of the pressure test means with the pressure test by interior pressures with pressurization without determination. Cylinder expansion rebuild means with the replacement of the pressure part, e.g. wall head pressure fittings by welding. Rejected cylinder means with the cylinder that cannot be used for the transportation of hazardous material commerce without repairing or rebuilding. Requalification repair means the procedure for the correction of the rejected cylinder that may involve welding. Requalification means for the completion of the visual inspection or test that required to perform the cylinder to determine the suitability of the continued service. The requalification identification number, the RIN, remains the code for the sign with the dot to uniquely identify the cylinder. Requalification repair rebuilding facility. Test pressure means for the pressure used for the requalification of the cylinder. The total expansion means the total increase of the cylinder volume due to the application of the test pressure visual inspection. Means internal, external visual examination, both parts. Performance prior with the cylinder requalification process, volumetric expansion test, with the pressure to determine the total permanent expansion of the cylinder at given pressure for the volumetric expansion test is conducted with the water jacket direct expansion method. The water jacket method means the volumetric expansion of the tanks determine the cylinder total with the permanent expansion, measuring the difference between the volume of the water cylinder externally displayed for the test pressure of the volume of the water and cylinder externally displayed for the ambient pressure. Direct expansion method means the volumetric expansion test to calculate the cylinder's total pressure for the total and permanent expansion pressure for the amount of the water force in the cylinder at test pressure adjusted with the compressibility of the water and means to determine the expansion. 1-800-205, general requirements for the qualification specification cylinders. Each cylinder use for the transportation hazard material must be authorized. The packaging qualified authorized packaging. Each cylinder must conform with the subpart applicable requirements specified in Part 173 subchapter. The applicable requirements subchapter C of Part 178 subchapter. A person performing requalification functions, no person may represent the preparer of the requalification of the cylinder that has performed in accordance with the requirements of the subchapter unless the person holds the current approval issue for the owner of the procedural requirements prescribed in subchapter 1 of Part 107 of the subchapter. No person may mark a cylinder with a RIN or requalification date with otherwise represent with a dot specification special permanent cylinder as in requalified unless applicable the requirements of subpart have been met. A person who requalified cylinders must maintain a record prescribed in the statute 182.15 of each location with inspection testing mark cylinders. Periodic requalification of cylinders. Each cylinder bearing a dot CRC, BTC, or CTC specification marking must be requalified and marked and specified in requalification table in the subpart with the qualified part of the and marked by the facility registered in the Transportation Canada in accordance with the Transportation Code, Trade Dangerous Good Regulations, IBR 171.7, in the subchapter. Each cylinder bearings both of the TC specification mark, also marked with the corresponding dot specification marks, must be requalification marked and specified with the requalification table subpart with the requalified marked with the facility registered in the Transportation Canada. Trade in dangerous good regulations. Each cylinder bearing with a DAF special permit that must be requalified marked in conformance with the section term of the applicable special permit. Each cylinder bearing with a TC, only a TC mark must be requalified marked and specified with the Canada Trade in dangerous goods regulation. Except registration for the Transportation Canada is not required to, and cylinders must be marked with the qualifier's dot issued requalifier identification number. No cylinder may be filled with a hazardous material offered with the transportation in commerce unless the cylinder has been successfully qualified marked in accordance with the subpart. Cylinder may be requalified any time during before the month of the year of the requalification is due. However, the cylinder filled with before the requalification be due may remain in surface until it is empty. The cylinder have the specified surface may not be refilled with the offered for the transportation after the authorized life is expired. Each cylinder is requalified in accordance with the requirements specified for the section must be marked in accordance with the statute 182.13 and requirement of the Transportation Canada Trade in Dangerous Goods. In the case of the TC cylinder, we qualified in the United States by a .RIN number holder in accordance with the requirements of the Transportation Canada TDG regulation exemption with the registration Transportation Canada not required in cylinders, but it must be marked with the qualifier's issue requalification identification number. Each cylinder must fail, but the requalification must be 1. Rejected may be repaired, rebuilt in accordance with 182.11 and 182.12 and appropriate to contend with in accordance with the paragraph 1 of the section for the DAT specification cylinders marked surface of the appropriate usher may be changed upon the approval of the associated administrator in accordance with the written procedure specified in the approval. For specification 3, 3A, 3AA, 3AL, 3AX, 3AX, 3B, 3BN, 3T cylinders filled with the gas 2000 Division 22 with the first qualification due with December 31st, 2003 for the burst of pressure CG1, CG4, CG5 with the pressure relief ice must be test pressure for the tolerance plus 0 with the minus 10% with additional 5 tolerances allowed with the combined with the ruptured disc displayed for the inside of the holder. This requirement does not apply with the CG2, CG3, and CG9 thermally activated relief device over the CG reclosing the pressure valve that within the cylinder conditions requiring testing and inspection of the cylinders without graduating any periodic inspection and requalification requirement. The cylinder must be tested for inspection in accordance with the section prior for the further use if the cylinder shows evidence of dense corrosion, crack, or broad area of leakage, thermal damage, any other condition that might render it for you unsafe for the use of the transportation. The cylinder has been in an accident that has been damaged to the extent that may adversely affect the lading of the retention capability of the cylinder shows evidence of the known habits of it and overheated. The associated administrator determined the cylinder may be in unsafe condition. Cylinders containing Class 8 corrosive liquids. A cylinder previously containing a Class 8 corrosive liquid may not be used within transportation Class 2 material in commerce unless the cylinder is visually inspected internally, externally, in accordance with the paragraph F of this section. Inspection is required with the described in the statute 182.15 qualified in accordance with the section regardless of the state of the previous qualification making in accordance with the 182.13 decontamination removal of the significant residual impregnation of the Class 8 material. Visual inspection. Each of the otherwise in subpart each time the cylinder is pressure tested, it must be given an internal external visual inspection. Visual inspection must be performed in accordance with the following with the CGA pan with the C6 with the steel with the nickel cylinder, C61 stainless aluminum cylinder, C62 with the fiber reinforced composite special permanent cylinder, C63 with the low pressure aluminum cylinder, C8 the .3HT cylinders, and C13.8 cylinders, 8.8 series cylinders. For each cylinder with the coating of attachment that inhibits the inspection of the cylinder, the coating with attachments must be removed before the visual inspection. Each cylinder is subject to the visual inspection must be approved with the rejected condemning according to the criteria applicable to the CGA pamphlet. In addition to the other requirements prescribed in subpart F, each specification manufactured with aluminum alloy 6351T6 for the use of the self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, self-contained breathing apparatus, or SBABA. Oxygen surface must be inspected to ascertain loading, cracking, in accordance with the Appendix C with the first schedule for the 5-year requalification period of January 1st, 2007, every 5 years thereafter. Pressure tests, unless otherwise provided, the cylinder required with the retest, but the subpart with the retest means suitable for the measuring expansion of the cylinder, and under pressure bands and other removal attachments might be loosened, moved before testing the cylinder. The history of the expanding in all directions. The tester indicating the device for the test apparatus must permit reading of the pressure within 1% of the minimum prescribed test pressure for each cylinder tested, except for the long analog device interpolation of 1/2 of the marked gauge division. Acceptance for the expansion indicating device for the test apparatus must also permit incremental reading of the cylinder expansion to 1% of the total expansion of each cylinder tested, or 1/10 of whichever is the larger midpoint visual interpolation permitted. Each day before the retesting, retester shall confirm that you with the calibrated cylinder with the other method, the authorized rating and the association administrator of the pressure indicated by for the part with the retest for the apparatus accurate within plus or minus 1% with the prescribed test for the pressure for the cylinder tested with the day with the pressure indicating the device itself must be certified and have an accuracy of the 0. Plus or minus 0.5% with the meter with the full with the range that must permit the reading of the pressure of 90% to 110% with the minimum prescribed test pressure of cylinder test and the current accuracy of the pressure indicating the device for the test system that can be demonstrated at any point with a 500 psi gauge. Actual test pressure of the test pressures are above 3,000 psi gauge of the 10%. With the actual test pressure of the test pressure of 3,000 psi gauge, the expansion for the indicating device that is part of the retesting apparatus give the suitable reading of the expansion for the accurate with the 1 plus or minus 1% of the total expansion of any cylinder with the tested with the 0, 1 TCs, whichever the large expansion indicating the device itself must have an accuracy of 0 plus or minus 0.5% better. At full scale, the test equipment must be verified with the accurate of 1% with the calibrated cylinder pressure for the corresponding expansion value that must be accomplished by bringing the pressure value shown with the calibration certificate for the calibrated cylinder, used in verifying the result of the total expansion of the plus or minus 1% of the total expansion shown with the collaboration certificate. Alternate calibration must be demonstrated to bring in the total expansion known with the value of the calibration certificate of the calibrated cylinder to verify the resulting of the pressure for the plus or minus 1% of the pressure shown with the calibration certificate. The calibrated cylinder must show that no permanent expansion of the retester must determine the calibration and the conformance of paragraph G that any other authorized inspector any day of the retest cylinder. Retest must be maintained. Calibrated cylinder certificate in conformance with the 1 Statute 182.15b4, for the minimum of the test pressure must be maintained at least 30 seconds as long as necessary to complete with the expansion of the cylinder system. Check with the may be performed at below with 90% of the test pressure prior to the retest. In case of the malfunction for the test equipment, the test may be repeated. The pressure increased by 10% with a 100 psi gauge, with the less with the paragraph G that does not authorize the retest for the cylinder otherwise required within to be condemned on paragraph I of this section. Training materials may be used with the training person for the requalifying cylinders using the voltmetric test system. Cylinder rejection. Cylinder must be rejected when after the visual inspection meets the condition for the rejection under the visual inspection requirements of paragraph F of the section 1, except for the provided in paragraph H3 and H4 of the section. Cylinder is rejected may not be marked with the meeting of the requirements of the section. The requalifier must notify the cylinder in writing whether the cylinder has been rejected. 3. Unless the cylinder is requalified in conformance with the requirements of the statute 182.11, then they may not be filled with the hazardous material offered with the transportation comments with the specific packaging required. 4. Rejected cylinders with an surface pressure less than 900 psi gauge may be requalified, marked with the cylinder, repaired with the rebuild, subsequently inspected, tested in conformance with the 1 visual inspection requirements, paragraph F of the section 2, part 178, subchapter of this part. 3. Any special permit to cover the manufacturer requalification of the use of the cylinder. And 5. Any approval required under the statute 182.11. The cylinder condemnation. A cylinder must be condemned when cylinder meets a condition with the condemnation arm of the visual inspection requirement of the paragraph F of the section. Cylinder leak through the wall. The evidence cracking exists extent with the cylinder likely to be weakened appreciably with the 4. The dot specification cylinder with the dot E 4E aluminum cylinder special permanent cylinder with the permit of the expansion for the extent of 10% of the total expansion. 4.3 HG cylinder with the pressure for the test yield with the elastic expansion test with the marked rejection of the elastic expansion or value with the cylinder show with the evidence of the denting and the bulging. Cylinder bearer for the manufacturer original test date older than the 24 years after the 4,380 pressurization, with whichever that occurs first. If the cylinder is refilled average of the more than once every other day, the accurate record of the number of the recharging must be retained in the cylinder owner or owner's agent for the DOT 4E aluminum cylinders permanent expansion that exceeds 12% of the total expansion. 7. The DOT special permit of the cylinder permanent expansion exceed the limit of the applicable special permit of the cylinder meet with another criteria for the condemnation applicable to special permit. 8. The aluminum and aluminum lime composite special material cylinders now to have the bin and also evidence having the oven over the teeth with the cylinder must be in condemned with the qualifier stamp with the series of the X's over the dot specification number and the marked pressure from the top of the condemned with on the shoulder, the top of the neck, even in steel stamp. For complete cylinder securely affixed with the cylinder with a label with the word condemned overcoated with the epoxy with not obscuring the original cylinder manufacturer label and alternative with the stamping of the labeling described in the paragraph 1I2 of the direction over the owner qualifier may render with the incapable of the holding pressure for the no person remove the operator with the condemned mark within the addition of the qualifier must notify the cylinder in writing with the cylinders the condemned may not be filled with the hazardous material offered for transportation comments when using specification packaging is required. Alright, 18207 requirements of requalification for the UN pressure receptacle. Generally, the UN pressure receptacle used with the transportation of the hazardous material must conform with the requirements prescribed in paragraph A, B, and D of the 18205. But the no pressure receptacle used with the requalification must be filled with the hazardous material and offered for the transportation and comments unless the pressure receptacle has been successfully requalified and marked in accordance with the subpart. Pressure of the receptacle may be requalified any time during the period before the month, year of the requalification is done. However, the pressure receptacle will fill before the requalification becomes due, but may remain in service until it is empty. No person requalified human composite the pressure receptacle will continue with beyond 15 years authorized service life of the pressure receptacle specified service life may not be refilled the offer of the transportation or if after its authorized service if it is expired unless the approval that has been obtained in writing with the associated administrator. B. Periodic requalification UN pressure receptacle. Each pressure receptacle is successfully requalified in accordance with requirement specification in section must be marked in accordance with 182.13 requalification result that must be recorded in accordance with statute 182.15. Each pressure receptacle that fails requalification must be rejected or reclaimed, condemned in accordance with the applicable to the ISO requalification standard. The requalification interval of the UN pressure receptacle that becomes the periodic requalification must be qualified interval specified in the following table. Table 1 requalification under pressure UN pressure receptacles. 2. Requalification procedure. If the UN receptacles have become due, the requalification must requalify with the intervals described in the paragraph 3 of this section. According to the pressure that contained with the following standard that applicable when the pressure test is performed in the UN pressure receptacle, the test must be in the water jacket of volumetric expansion suitable for the determination of the cylinder expansion for the hydraulic proof pressure for the test. Equipment must conform with the accuracy requirement of the statute 18205. The alternate method of the acoustic emissions of qualification procedure may be performed in prior approval obtained with the writing of the associated administrator. Seamless steel with the UN pressure receptacle, including MEGC pressure for the receptacle, must be qualified according to standard with the ISO 6406. And however, the UN cylinders with a tensile strength greater than or equal to 900 MPAs must be qualified in ultrasonic examination according to the ISO 6406. Seamless aluminum UN pressure receptacles must be qualified in accordance with the ISO 10461. Dissolve acetylene UN cylinders. Dissolve the acetylene cylinders must be qualified in ISO 10462-2013 until the December 13, 2018. Requalification may be done in accordance with the section ISO 10462. The porous mass of the shell must be requalified no sooner than 3 years, 6 months from the date of the manufacture thereafter. The subsequent qualification of porous mass shell must be performed at least once every 10 years. Composite UN cylinders. Each of the composite cylinders must be inspected and tested in accordance with the ISO 11623. And the UN cylinders absorb the gases. The UN cylinders for the absorbed gases must be inspected and tested in accordance with the statute 173.302 C and ISO 11513-2011. 18209 requirements for the requalification specification cylinders. Periodic qualification cylinders inspecting each specific cylinder has become with the due with the periodic requalification specified in the following table that must be requalified maintenance marked in conformance with the requirements over this subpart requalification parts maintained in accordance with the statute 182.15 of the table 1 as follows. Dot 3A and 3A cylinders must conform with the specification of dot 3A and 3A water capacity of 5.6 kilograms or 125 pounds, but it has been removed with any cluster bank of the group rack of the vehicle that each time in the field, but it may be requalified every 10 years instead of every 5 years, provided the cylinder conforms to all the following conditions. The cylinder was manufactured after December 31st, 1945. The cylinder is exclusively with air, argon, silopropane, ethanol, helium, hydrogen, krypton, neon, nitrogen, nitrous oxide, oxygen, sulfur, hexafluoride, the xenon, chlorinated hydrocarbons, fluorinated hydrocarbons, liquefied hydrocarbons, mixture of air over the commercially free with the corroding component of the permitted with the mixture of these gases, permitted with the mixture of these gases with up to 30% of the volume of carbon dioxide provided with the gas at the dew point below the minus 52 degrees Fahrenheit at atmosphere, one atmosphere. Before the refill of the cylinder, remove with any of the cluster bank of the group of the rack of the vehicle to pass with a hammer and testified CGA panel with the C6 for the cylinder is dry with the hydrostatic testing, remove with all the trace with the water. The cylinder is not used with the underwater breathing. Each cylinder is stamped with a 5-point star with at least 1/4 of any inch of the an inch high immediately following the test date. And since the last required qualification cylinder has not been used exclusively with the gas specifically included with the paragraph B12 with the section of the currently conform with the other provisions of the paragraph B1 of the section, it may be requalified every 10 years instead of every 5 years. Prior to the first requalified examination prescribed in statute 173.302A. B2, 3, and 4 of the subchapter except for the specified in paragraph B2 of the section in the cylinder. marked with a star with a cell with the compressed gas over the specified in paragraph B1-2 with a section of the star found with the most recent with the test, but the date must be obliterated, but the cylinder must be requalified 5 years from the mark of the test date. However, the first filling with the compressed gas with the required 5-year requalification period has passed. Dot 4 series cylinder with the dot 4 series cylinder except with the 4L cylinder have at any time of the show with the evidence of the leak with the internal external corrosive denting, bulging, rough UV the extent with the likely to be weak and appreciable with the loss of 5% of the more of the official tear weight must be qualified by being with the filled with the cooperative with the transportation as applicable regarding the cylinder weakness after the testing the actual tear of the weight must be recorded with the new tear weight. Cylinders of 12 pounds or less with a surface pressure of 300 psi G or less. Cylinders with 12 pounds or less water with the capacity on or with the surface pressure with a 300 psi gauge left must be given with a complete with the external visual inspection at the time periodic requalification due. External visual inspection must be in accordance with the CGA parent C6 with the C61. Cylinders must be approved with the pressure tested. If the test is successfully cylinders more examined under the test pressure does not display the defect was described in 182.05.1. I-1, 2, and 3 with the unsuccessful completion of the test after the inspection cylinder must be marked in accordance with statute 182.13. Proof of pressure test. Cylinder made in conformity with the dot specification 4B, 4BA, 4BW, and the 4E protected with external with a suitable corrosion with a resistant coating with a usually exclusive for the non-corrosive gas with the commercially free with the corroding of the components of the may be qualified volumetric expansion testing, proof pressure testing after 10 years instead of every 4 or 5 years when the subject of the proof of the pressure and the cylinder must be carefully examined under the test pressure removed for the surface of the leak with the it's found poisonous material cylinder conform with the specification dot 3A, 3AA, 3B, 4BA, 4B with having the 4BW for having the surface of a 300 psi gauge left with exclusively with the methyl bromide liquid with a mixture of methyl bromide, ethanol dibromide liquid mixture with the methyl bromide, chloryl and liquid mixture with the methanol bromide, petroleum solvents, liquid methanol bromide, non-flammable, non-liquid compressed gas, liquid, and commercially free of the corroding components. Protects externally by the suitable corrosion-resistant coating, such as the galvanizing or painting, and internally suitable corrosion with a resistant lining, such as the galvanizing, may be tested every 10 years instead of every 5 years. Provided with visual inspection, external examination of the cylinders are conducted every 5 years in accordance with the CGA pamphlet C6. Cylinder must be examined at each with the filling with rejected with indent and corrode with the area with the leak with the other condition and the possible weakness. G. The visual inspection cylinder with the conforming to the specification laid for the table of the paragraph of the U with the exclusion with the surface indicated may be instead of the periodic hydrostatic capacity be given the complete external visual inspection at the time of the periodic requalification become the due with the external visual inspection must be in accordance with the CGA pamphlet C6 and C63 with the applicable when the inspection is used instead of the hydrostatic pressure testing. Subsequent inspection required with the 5-year intervals after the first inspection. After May 31st, 2004, inspections may be made only personal hold with the RAN with the result with according to maintain in accordance with the statute 182.15 recorded must be in the date of the inspection month of the year. The dot specification number of the cylinder's identification registered symbol with the series name of number of the date of the manufacturer and arm, the type of the cylinder, protective of the coating, with including the same that is needed with the re-furnishing, with the recoating condition, the check with leakage, corrosion, gouging, dents and digs in the shell with the head over the broken, damaged foot ring, with the protective of the ring of the fire damage to disposition. Cylinders returned to the service, return cylinder manufacturers or repairs, or the condemned the cylinder passing requalification. External visual specification must be in accordance with the statute 182.13 specification, but the cylinders must be exclusively served as shown in the following table. Cylinders containing the anhydrous ammonia with the cylinder conform with the specification .3A, 3A, 480X, and the 4A, 4080. Used exclusively with the anhydrous ammonia, commercially free with the coating with the components with protected externally suitable corrosion resistant with the coating such as the paint may be requalified every 10 years instead of every 5 years. Requalification .8 cylinders, each one with the owner .8 cylinders used with the transportation suddenly move with the cylinder shall have a pores filled with the requalification in accordance with the CGA pamphlet C13. Requalification must be performed in accordance with the following schedule. Unless requalified marked in accordance with the CGA pamphlet C13 before October 1st, 1994, the acetylene cylinders must be qualified by personal hold with the RAN. The cylinder value with the replace with the cylinder value with the same with the weight with the B with the tear weight with the cylinder U with the maybe must be adjusted to compensate with the valve weight with the differential. The person performing the visual inspection requalification must be recorded. The result of the specified 182.15. The person performing the visual inspection requalification must mark with the cylinder specified in 182.13. Cylinders U with the fire extinguisher on dot specification. Cylinders U with the fire extinguisher meeting the requirements of statute 173.309A with the subchapter will qualify in accordance with the subpart paragraph J. Dot 4B, 4BA, 4B240, ET, 4B40, 4BW cylinder to be tested as with the cylinder water capacity over 12 pounds left with the volumetric expansion to be tested with the water jacket approved. Method of approved pressure for the requalification must be performed in the 12 years after the original tested date, the 12 intervals thereafter. The 4-cylinder for its only having the water capacity of 12 pounds of the proof of the pressure depth of the requalification must be performed at the end of the 12 years original test date with a 7-year interval. The volumetric expansion testing with the water jacket test method of the requalification must be performed 12 years after the original test date, 12 years intervals thereafter. 3A, 3A, 3AL cylinder must be requalified for volumetric expansion testing with the water jacket method of requalification must be performed 12 years after the original testing date with 12 intervals thereafter. K3HG cylinders, in addition to the other requirements in the section cylinder, the 3HG, but they must be requalified in accordance with the CJC8 with the requalification for and cylinders for the expert of the cylinder manufacturer outside of the United States for the other than provided in Statute 171.12a, 171.23 A with the subchapter that has not been manufactured and inspected. Then testing with a mark for the corner of the part with the 178 with the subchapter filled with the compressed gas of the United States. The strip solely for the export of the meat with the following requirements with addition with the other requirements of the subchapter has been inspected, tested, and marketed with only the month and year of the test conform with the procedure with the requirements of the subpart of the associated administrator for the authorized with the filling of the company to fill with the foreign cylinders under the alternative method of the qualification offer the transportation conform with the requirements of the statute 171.12a4 and 171.23a4 subchapter of the M.3AL cylinders manufactured with a 6351 T6 aluminum alloy addition with the periodic root qualification marked in the statute 178-182.05 each of the cylinder manufactured aluminum alloy 6351 T6 to be used as self-contained under the water breathing apparatus or scuba the self-contained breathing apparatus. The oxygen strippers must be qualified and inspected to sustain load cracking in accordance with the non-destructive examination method described in the following table. Each cylinder has sustained with the loading of the cracking with the expand with the neck with the threads with the condemned with the accordance with the statute 182.05 and 1. The provision does not apply with the cylinder used for the carbon dioxide fire extinguisher or other industrial gas and services. Alright, 182.11, the repair, rebuilding, reheating, the treating of the DAT4 series specification cylinders. General requirement of the rebuilding and repairing the rebuilding DAT4 cylinders must be performed by the person holding the approval specified in 107.805 with the chapter registered with the facility with the candidate according with the transportation candidate with the transportation of the danger scope of the person performing the rebuild the function of the consider the manufacturer subject with the requirements of 178 to A2 with the subchapter C with the subpart C with the subpart 178. The person performing the repair, rebuild, reheat treatment must record the test results specified in 178. Statute 182.15. Each for the cylinder successfully repaired or rebuilt must be marked from the accordance with 182.13. General repair requirements. Either the repair of the DAT4 series cylinders must be made in accordance with the following condition of the repair and the inspection of the work performed may be in accordance with the requirements of the cylinder specification. Person performing the repair of the procedure, equipment of the failure metal of the brazing material authorized for the approval of the issue of the statute 107.805 of the shaft. The welding of the brazing must be performed in any of the area with the free of the contamination. Weld defects such as porosity with the pressure retaining seam of the must be complete with the removal of the four rewelding. Puddling may be used with the removal of the weld of the defectively only with the tungsten and air gas shield or compressors. Every removal of the non-pressure attachment before the is replaced. And the cylinder must be given with a visual inspection from the corner of the statute 182.05 of that with the reheat treat with the .4B, 4BA, 4BW specification symbol to replace the non-pressure attachment and now required with the total weight. Well, the material does not exceed 8 inches of the individual welds must be at least 3 inches apart. After the repair of the .4B, 4BA, 4BW cylinders, the weld area must be leak tested and surface pressure for the cylinder. Repair the weld defects must be free of the cracks. Non-pressure for the attachment. The original cylinder specification mark to replace or markings must be transferred and attached with the repair of the cylinder. Wall head at the bottom of the cylinder with a defect for leaks of the base material may not base metal may not be repaired, but they may be replaced provided with the paragraph D of the section C. The additional repair requirement of the 4L cylinder. Repair of the .4L cylinders must be performed in accordance with the paragraph A and B of the section. They're limited to the following: the one, the removal of either end of the insulation jacket with the permits of the access of the cylinder piping system with the neck tube. 2, the replacement of the neck of the tube with at least 0.51 inches replaced with the original 0.51 inches the original neck of the tube with the protruding above the cylinder's top of the original welding attachment. The neck of the tube of the cylinder must be sound with the replacement neck tube that must be welded the remaining pieces of the original neck tube. 3, the replacement of the material such as not limited to the insulation material of the piping system with an insulation space for the authorized the replacement material must be equivalent to that used at the time of the original manufacture. Other welding procedures that are permitted to the CGA path, C3, and they not exclude with the definition of rebuild that they authorized. After repairing, the cylinder must be Pressure testing according to the specification of the cylinder with it originally manufactured. The 2 leak tests of the before then after the assembly inspection jacket with the UV the mass with the spectrometer detection system. 3. The test heat conducted for the requirements of the general build requirements of one with the rebuilding the 4 C cylinders must be made with according to the following requirement. The person rebuilding cylinder must use the procedure equipment that authorized with approval of the issue with the statute 107-805. After the removal of the non-pressure component before the replacement of the non-pressure component with the cylinder must visually inspect with the corner of the CGA panel of the C6. The rebuilder may rebuild the .4B, 4BA, 4BW cylinders have with the water capacity of 20 pounds with the greater the replacing the head of the cylinder with the circumferential joint with the welded joint located with the original welded joint. The notation for the modification must be shown with the manufacturer's report of the rebuilding of statute 182.15c. 2. The welded joint must be in the cylindrical section of the cylinder. Any welding on the inspection retest and rebuild of the cylinder must be in accordance with the requirements of the applicable cylinder specification following the requirements of A. The rebuild of any cylinder that revolves with the subject internal pressure may only be performed with the fusion welding. B. When welding must be performed in any of the area free of the contaminants of C. The welded defects such as the porosity pressure for the retaining seam must be complete with the removal of the before rewelding buttling. Maybe U. The removal of the weld defect with the U. The tungsten and air gas shield arc process. Any rebuilt cylinder must be heat treated in accordance with the paragraph F of the section. Subject to voltage major expansion of the tube of the test cylinder. The result of the test must conform with the applicable cylinder specification. 3. Inspected and have the test of the review determine the conformity of the applicable cylinder specification. 4. Made with the material conformity with the specification determination conformance shall include with the chemical analysis of the verification inspection tensile testing of the replaced parts. For the tensile test must be performed on the replaced part after the heat treatment of the lots of defined with the applicable specification for each of the rebuilt cylinder. An inspector report must be prepared to include the information listed in the statute 182.15c. For the rebuild of the cylinder, braze seam is prohibited. With the end of the original cylinder specification marked with the replacement, all marks must be transferred to the rebuilt cylinder. Additional rebuilding requirement of the .4L cylinder. The rebuilding .4L cylinders must be performed in accordance with paragraph D of the section rebuild the .4L cylinders. 1. Substituting adding material for the insulation space for the identical to U of the original manufacturer of the cylinder. Marking 2. Marking the weld repair not exceeding 5.9 inches the length of the longitudinal seam of the cylinder with 11.8 inches length of the circumferential weld joint of the cylinder. 3. Replacing the outer jacket replaced with the treatment over the cylinders prohibited after the rebuilding. Each of the inner containing vessels must be approved pressure tested at least 2 times. And surface pressure. Each completed assembly must be leak tested using the mass spectrometer of the detection system. After the reheat treatment, prior to the reheat treatment, each of the cylinder must be given the visual inspection internally, externally, in accordance with the statute 182.05f. Cylinders must be segregated in lots of the retreatment. The treatment of the reheat treatment, the visual inspection must be performed in accordance with the specification of the cylinders, except as providing in paragraph F4 over the section. After retreatment, each of the cylinder loft must be subjected to the volumetric expansion test meet with the acceptable acceptance criteria for the applicable specification or be scrapped. After the welding heat treatment, the test of the new weld must be performed as required with the original specification. The test result must be recorded for the paragraph statute with 215. 18215. Repair and rebuilding, reheating, retreatment of the Canadian in Canada. Repair and rebuild of the reheat treatment of the .4 for zero of the specification cylinder performed with the registered facility of the Canada in accordance with the transportation good of the transportation dangerous goods regulation is authorized. 182.12. The repair of the seamless .3 series specification cylinders and seamless UN pressure receptacle. General requirement the repair of the .3 cylinders, UN pressure receptacle. No person may repair with the .3 cylinders or seamless UN receptacle unless the repair facility holds an approval issued under the provision statute 107.805, except that is provided in paragraph B of the section. The repair of the inspection performed under the provision of the approval issued with the subchapter part H of the part 107 of the chapter of the facility registered with the Transportation Canada in accordance with the Transportation Canada Transportation Dangerous Goods Regulation in the conform of the applicable cylinder specification IOC standard with the conform standard with the paragraph part 178 subchapter. The person performing the repair must prepare the reporting containing with a minimum of the result prescribed in statute 182.15. Repair not requiring prior or through approval, the approval does not require with the following specific repair for the removal of the replacement of the neck ring with a foot ring with a .3A with a 3A, 3B with a cylinder, UN pressure receptacle that does not affect the pressure part of the cylinder with the repair performed with the repair facility. Cylinder manufactured with each type of the cylinder with the repair may be made with the welding braid with the conformity of the original specification. After the removal of the replacement, before replacement, the cylinder must be visually inspected. Any defective cylinder must be rejected. The heat treatment of the testing inspection repair must be performed under the supervision and inspector must be performed in accordance with the original specifications. 3 external rethreading with the .3AX, 3AAX, and 3T specification cylinder with the UN pressure receptacle mounted with the MEGC with the internal rethreading with the .3 cylinder series cylinder. A seamless UN pressure receptacle with the form of the cylinder manufactured with these type of the cylinder with the prepared with must be performed under the supervision independent with the inspection agency under the completion of the rethreading with the threads must be standard in accordance with the federal standard H28 with the equivalent standing contained with the same specification of the rethread of the cylinder must be stamped with clearly legible with the words reheat rethreaded with the shoulder with the top of the head of the neck of the nose. Top specification cylinder UN cylinder may be rethreaded more than one time without approval of the associated administrator. Art 182.13 requalification marks. Generally, each cylinder with the UN pressure receptacle requalified in accordance with the subpart with the acceptable result of the mark is specified in the section required with the specification mark to not be altered. With the remove of the placement of the marking, each cylinder must be plainly permanently marked on the metal of the cylinder with the permanent with the applicable specification left of the authorized with the cylinder specification marked on the cylinder sidewall. Prohibited the requalification required with the specification markings must be legible so they be readily visible at all times. Legible specification mark with the may be marked for the cylinder provided with the original specification requalification marks may be placed within any portion of the upper end of the cylinder, but they extend with the sidewall of the provided provided in the section requalification required specification mark with the eligible may be legible may be reproduced on metal plate attached provided with the original specification. Previous qualifications marked with the may not be obliterated except that when they space originally provided with the requalification may be filled and additional dates may be also filed with all preceding requalification dates must be removed by painting provided with the permission obtained with the cylinder owner the minimum wall thickness with the maintained in accordance with the manufacturer's specification for the cylinder. The original manufacturer of the date is removed. The cylinder has fitted with a foot ring and exemption with the date that may be marked with the external source of the foot ring. The C. The requalification marking method. The depth of the requalification markers may not be greater than specified. Applicable specification of the markers must be made with the sampling and engraving and describing the applying with the level of the embedded with the epoxy. The use will remain legible throughout the life of the cylinder. Other methods of the produce legible, durable marking. The cylinder even the fire extinguisher may be marked by even the pressure sensitive label. For the .3T cylinder of the test of the RIN must be applied with lower steel stamps with a depth no greater than the prescribed at the time of the manufacturer's stamping. The sidewall is not authorized. For composite cylinder, the requalification marks must be applied with the pressure sensitive this label to the securely affixed with the manner prescribed by the cylinder. Qualification manufactured from the year of the original manufacturer label stamping. Over the composite surface that is not authorized, requalification mark even the cylinder successfully passing requalification must be marked for the RIN set with the square pattern of the return with the month of the year and the requalification date of the first chapter of the RIN must be appear with the upper left corner with the square pattern with the second and up the right with the third lower right with the fourth lower left with the example of the four cylinder required September the 2006 the proof of the person who has been issued the RIN A123 be marked plainly with the permanently into the metal of the cylinder in accordance with the location and requirement of the cylinder specification on the metal plate permanently secured with the cylinder in accordance with the paragraph B of the section. Example of the markings prescribed in paragraph D of this section is follows. And is the month of the qualification. A123 is the RIN. 06 if the last year qualification. X of the representative similar described in paragraph F2 through F8 of the section. Upon written request of the variation marking, the requirements may be approved by the associated administrator with the exemption of the cylinder subject to the requirements of the statute 171.23A4. The subchapter may not be marked with the RIN. Size of the marking. The side of the marking of the domain must be at least 1/4 inch high. The height with the RIN cable characteristics must be at least 1/8 of an inch high. Marking of the illustration example of the required qualification mark of the specifications permit cylinder illustrated as follows. For the designation of the 5-year voltmetric expansion, the 10-year voltmetric expansion test over the for the UN cylinders conforming with the statute 180-209F, and H for the 12 voltmetric expansion for the fire extinguisher over the conforming with the 173 and 309 with the subchapter of the cylinders conforming to the 108-209E and G with the mark of the illustrated in paragraph D of this section. For the designation for the 10-year voltmetric expansion testing of the performance with statute 18209B with the mark of the illustrated in paragraph D of this section, except for the X is replaced with the 5-point star for the designation special filling limited to 10% instead for the mark serve the pressure for the cylinder performance 173-302A with the subchapter marker when the illustrated in paragraph D of the section, except for the X is replaced with the plus sign with the designation for the proof of the pressure for the test for the mark for the illustrated in paragraph D of the section, except for the X is replaced with the letter S for the designation 5-year external visual inspections for the cylinder with the statute 18209 G for the marking illustrated in paragraph D of this section, exempt for the X for the replaced with the letter E. For the designation .8 series to show the requalification only with the marking illustrated in paragraph D of this section, except for the X mark with the letter S. For the designation .8 series for the UN cylinder shell with the pores filled with the requalification marking illustration paragraph D of this section, except for the X is replaced with the letter FS. For For the designation unrestricted examination combined with the visual inspection marking with the illustrated in paragraph D with the section with the example of the action with the play for the type of the test performed with the example of the letters AE with the acoustical emission UE for the ultrasonic examination for the designation Eddie with the examination combined with the visual inspection marking with the illustration paragraph D of the section except for the actions played for the letter VE. Or Statute 108-215, reporting, recording, retention requirements. Facility records. A person with a qualified repair with rebuild cylinders must maintain the following records with the qualification performed with the RIN issuance letter with the current RIN expired with the renewal, the pending of the copy with the renewal request, copy of the notification associated administrative required on the statute 170-805 with the current copy with the portion of the subchapter applicable to the cylinder requalification marking with the activities of that location. Current copies of special permits for the governing of the exemption cylinder of the requalified market of the requalifier of the location, the information contained with each of the CGA ASTM standard for the incorporated of the reference of 171.7 of the subchapter applicable to the requalification activity. The information must be the same contained with the addition and incorporated with the reference of 171.7 of the subchapter. Part B, requalification records. Daily record of the visual inspection pressure for the test for the ultrasonic examination permitted to be done with the special permit the applicable that must be maintained with the person who performed the requalification until the either for the examination of the requalification period until the cylinder is again requalified, whichever there is occurred first. Single date may be used with each of the test sheet with provided each of the test time with the sheet with what is conducted on the date with the digital marking with a solid vertical line may be used to indicate the repetition preceding the entry with the following entries only. Date and actual dimension, manufacturer's name and the symbol of the president, the owner name is the symbol of the president with the test operator blank item space that may not be used to indicate repetition of the prior entry of the records. Must be include the following information: calibration test records for the E for the demonstrator of the calibration date with the serial number of the calibrated cylinder with the calibration test record for the total elastic permanent with the expansion of the legible identification testing operator. Tester operator must be able to demonstrate the result of the daily calibration verification corresponding with the hydrostatic testing performed on that day with the daily verification of the calibration may be recorded with the same sheet as is with the tester pressure records of the date. 3. Pressure testing, visual inspection record for the date of requalification, serial number, the data specification, special permit, the number of the marked pressure for the actual dimension, manufacturer name of the symbol, the owner's name of the symbol, the pressure for the result of the visual inspection, actual test pressure for the total elastic permanent expansion for the permanent expansion disposition region for any of the repeated tests, reject for the exemption, legal identification for the test operator for each of the cylinder of the mark for the pursuant of the statute 173-308. 302A-B5 with the subchapter of the test may include with the method of which an average maximum wall stress was computed. The record must be kept as completed unless for the unsuccessful step for the entry of the second test for the failure to hold the test pressure must indicate the day of the earlier test. 3. Wall stress. The calculation of average maximum wall stress pursuant to the statute 173-302A-B3 with the chapter to perform the calibration certificate. The most recent the certificate calibration must be maintained at each of the calibrated cylinder. C. Repair and rebuilding, reheat, treatment record of the recovering and rewelding, bracing and repair for the rewelding and reheating treatment shall be retained with a minimum of 15 years before they approve the facility. The record rebuilding in accordance with the statute 182.11b with must be completed with each of the cylinder rebuilt with the record must be clear and legible and contain the following information: name and address, test the facility, test report, the name of the original manufacturer, mark, stamp of the day with the cylinder with the specification, date with the pressure of the serial, the name of the number, the symbol of the manufacturer, inspection mark, other marks of any of the cylinder outside the diameter, length with an inches, rebuild process, weld, braid, and type of seam with etc. Description and assembly, any of the attachment replaced, neck rings or foot rings, chemical analysis of the material for the cylinder, including the seat under the code with the number, the type of the analysis for ladle check, with the ladle or check, chemical component for the carbon C, with the phosphorus P, for the sulfur S, silicon Si, magnesium Nm, nickel Ni, chromium Cr, molybdenum MO, copper, aluminum, and zinc with a material manufacturer may result with the person performing the analysis, result with the physical test material of the cylinder, strength with the PSI, tensile strength with the elongation percent, but it includes inches reduction in air with the percentage welding, tensile bend, name of the inspector. 7. Result of the proof pressure of the test for the cylinder, including the test method of the test pressure for the total expansion, permanent expansion for the electric expansion person, and permanent expansion may not exceed 10% of the total expansion volumetric capacity. With the volumetric capacity of the rebuilt cylinder must be within plus or minus 3% of the calculated capacity. 8. Each reporter, including the following certification statement: I certify that the rebuilt cylinder core actually represents the data of the, above the conform with all the requirements of the subchapter C with the chapter 1 with the Title 49 Code Federal Regulation. Certification must be signed with the rebuilt with a technician, principal officer, partner of the rebuild facility. 108217, requalification requirements of the MEGC, the periodic inspection for the MEGC, but may be given the visual inspection for the test in accordance with the statute 178-75 the subchapter being put in service for the first time. The initial inspection of the MEGC must be inspected at least once every 5 years. The 5-year period inspection must include the external examination of the structure pressure of the receptacle. Surface equipment is followed with the pressure receptacle with the inspection of the external plating with the corrosion of the aberration of the density, distortion, or defect of the well with any other condition, including leakage that might render with the MEGC unsafe for the transportation. The pipe of the valve with the gaskets are inspected. The corroded air of the defect for the other conditions, including the leakage that might render for the MEGC unsafe for the filling of the discharge of the transportation. Missing and loose bolts, nuts or a flange connection with a blank flange or replaced and tightened. All emergency devices involved with the free with the corrosion, the distortion, any of the damage of the defect with the could prevent with the name or operation remote with the closure device self closing stop of the valves must be operated with the demonstrator of the proper operation required market over the MEGC with the legible and according with the applicable the requirements of 7. 6 for the framework of the support for the arrangement of the lifting over the MEGC satisfactory condition. The MEG pressure of the MEGC pressure receptacle pipe must be periodically requalified in accordance with the imperative described in 182.07 AMC with the interval specified in Table 1 with the 108, 182.07. Part B. The exemptional inspection of the test of the MEG shown with the evidence and evidence grow of the area of the leak of the other condition of the indicating the deficiency could affect the integrity of the MEGC. Exemptional inspection of the test must be performed regardless of the latest periodic inspection of the test. The extent of the exemptional inspection testing is dependent on the amount of the damage deterioration of the MEGC. At a minimum, exemption and inspection for the MEGC include the inspection specified in paragraph A1 of the section C. Correction for the unsafe conditions. If evidence of unsafe conditions cover the MEGC, they may not be returned with the surface unless safe for the condition has been corrected. But the MEGC has been requalified in accordance with the applicable testing and inspection, repairs, and modification of the MEGC. No person may perform modification to approve the MEGC must perform the conform with the applicable iOS standard safety whether they involve the chain with the design type of effect, the ability to retain hazardous material in the transportation. Before making the modification chain with the approved with the MEGC, owner must be approved to improve with the associated administrator prescribed in statute 178-74. This is subchapter the repair of the MEG structural equipment the authorized provide with the repairs made within accordance with the requirements of the prescribed and approved with the design instruction. Any repair pressure receptacles of the MEGC must be requirements of statute 182.12. Alright, E. Requalification marketing. Even the MEGC monthly durable loves will make it in English for year of the month and type of the most recent periodic requalified. Perform the AE, UE, or AE represents the automatic emissions, acoustic emissions. UE represents ultrasonic examination, followed by the stamp of the approval of the agency. Perform witness for the most recent test. Record. The owner of each of the MEGC owner authorized agent must be retained with a written record with the date with the result of the repair required for the inspection. Test of the report must be contained with the name of the address for the person performing the inspection. Test of the periodic testing inspection records must be retained until the next inspection of the test completed. Repair of the record, the initial exemption of the inspection of the test records performed with the retaining during the period with the MEGC. This is service for 1 year thereafter. The records must be made available for inspection for the representative of the department on request. So Part D, qualifications, maintenance of the IBCs.